It's now my pleasure to introduce our president, Dr. Julie Sullivan. As most of you know, President Sullivan is entering her fourth year. She is a remarkable leader. It has been an absolute pleasure to work with her. And the things that I have come away with working with Julie, I want to share just a couple of things. She is absolutely committed to student success. She's an academic herself, and she understands that student success rests mainly with our faculty and the quality of our faculty. She wants our faculty to be successful. She wants the university to be successful. So without any further ado, here is our president, Dr. Julie Sullivan.
Goodness. Thank you all. And good afternoon. The opening of a new academic year is such a reinvigorating and special time. As Dr. Plum said, this is the fourth opening for me of an academic year at the University of St. Thomas. And my appreciation for our traditions and for our students, our faculty, and our staff's participation in them only grows, despite the fact we did not get to march through the arches this morning. And I've already heard from one parent wanting to know when I've rescheduled it. I actually had the email before I got back to my office. But it really is a pleasure to start this new academic year. And it was a pleasure to welcome our 174 new law students the week before last. And this morning, despite the rain, we had a beautiful celebration with our new undergraduate students in the Anderson Athletic and Recreation Center. And this afternoon, I'm thrilled to open what I am certain will be a very exciting academic year by addressing you in this traditional Academic Convocation celebration. Today, I want to reflect with you on a theme that I believe is of common interest to all of us. And I did not know about the reading that Greg was going to read this afternoon from Michael Jordan. But I hope you see some parallels, particularly by the end, and what I have to say, and Michael's wise words to us during his time with us. So the title of my talk is Higher Education and the Industries of the Future. See, there it is. Okay. I don't know how this clicker works, but I think. So, yep, there we go. Our jobs, yours and mine, as faculty, as administrators at St. Thomas, our jobs are to ensure our future alumni have the capacity to lead fulfilling and prosperous lives and to make sustainable differences in their families, in their workplaces, and in their communities. We want to look into the future, and we want to see happy, productive alumni advancing the common good and improving the lives of others. As you know, I often personalize this by saying, my job is to ensure that we are providing the education to our students today that will ensure one of my successors in 20, 30, 50 years from today, the St. Thomas president at that time, will be able to hear the same things from alumni that I hear today. Stories and more stories about how St. Thomas transformed their lives and meaningfully contributed to the people they have become. I think about that a lot because the world 20, 30, 50 years from today will be so different. How are we doing what we need to do today to ensure our graduates are going to say that at that time? The world is just changing so dramatically. We don't want to lose the current essence of our success. There's many, many things that make St. Thomas so special. We don't want to lose that essence. Yet at the same time, we must continue to anticipate and to adapt. We must anticipate the world and the jobs of our future alumni. Their jobs, their gigs, what will they be? Well, their jobs will be transformed by the enhanced power of digitization. Their jobs will involve more technology. Their jobs will incorporate more data. Their jobs will be more global. they will occur in a more diverse environment, and everything will be more interconnected. So, where will they be working, these alumni of the future? What are the industries of the future? Now, there will be many, many industries of the future. So this morning, I keep saying morning, it's afternoon. This afternoon, I'm going to paint a thumbnail sketch of 3 industries of the future that I think are representative of the types of industries and the types of environments where our alumni will be working, just to give you a sense of that world. The first one is robotics. Robotics is expanding rapidly. Advances in artificial intelligence due to our improvement in modeling belief space and access to cloud computing have opened up a new horizon in the world of robotics. In particular, the cloud access has replaced our need to actually build the artificial intelligence into the robot, into the function of the robot, because the robot can just connect to the cloud and access all of that immense computing power. What this means is tasks that today require spatial reasoning and dexterity, contextual understanding, judgment, and even emotion will be able to be performed by robots. Robots are being increasingly incorporated into manufacturing, and they're displacing workers in low-wage countries. We're already seeing this impact in China, where companies such as Foxconn, which makes almost all of our mobile phones, are assembled by a company called Foxconn, is one of the largest private employers in the world. It was drawing thousands and thousands and thousands and millions of people out of the countryside to its factories to work. Now they are buying robots to replace that labor. A car is now a robot on wheels. There's a blurring of line across industries. Toyota and Honda are now making robots. They are in Japan developing robots to perform household tasks and care for the elderly. And Amazon, Uber, and Google, right here in the US, are going into the car business. They're developing driverless cars. Just within the past few weeks, Uber put driverless cars on the road in Pittsburgh, and they purchased a company called Odo, the largest driverless trucking company in the world. Driverless vehicles will, of course, lead to job losses for taxi and Uber drivers, and also truck drivers. Right now, according to the American Trucking Association, there are 3.5 million people in the United States employed as truck drivers. It's actually the largest occupation for American males. Driverless vehicles will also release huge amounts of space that is currently being taken up by parking lots. If it's a driverless car, why should it sit there? It can go home and wait for us, or it can go pick up somebody else. It doesn't need to pay to sit in a parking garage. In the future, more and more services will be performed by robots, whether it's precision surgery or food service. Now, this will create a lot of displacement, but it's of particular concern if you think about that displacement being entry-level jobs of immigrants, such as you might find with drivers or parking, or part-time work for students that you also might find in drivers or food service. So robotics is the first of the 3, just to give you a sense of that world. The second one's big data. We've heard so much about big data. Digitization, embedded sensors, unlimited data storage have remarkable capacities to collect and store data. Smaller, cheaper, smarter sensors are embedded in our homes, in our clothes, in our transport and energy networks, in our agriculture fields, as well as in our manufacturing processes. We actually can monitor and track anything, whether it's inventory, energy efficiency, soil conditions, my steps. You can monitor and track anything and keep it as digital data. It's not going to be the data that's the real value. It's going to be how we use those large amounts of data to understand, forecast, and impact behavior. The real questions, the real value is going to come from the questions we ask, the relationships we uncover, and the new services we create from having all this data. The Internet of Things is expected to add 20 billion more connected devices to the Internet by 2020. That's in 3.5 years, 20 billion. This will create a large opportunity to create services around all this data and connectivity. This is happening already in healthcare. They're already putting sensors in rugs in nursing homes that can detect changes in gaits of the patients and be early warnings of strokes. As big data reaches more and more and different aspects of our everyday lives, the combination of big data and behavioral science will subtly change our behavior through a series of digital nudges that are going to impact our choices every day. Even today, my digital footprint is being observed and analyzed constantly. I'm constantly getting suggestions, as I'm sure you are, of news I might consume, music I might want to listen to, books I might want to read, just by somebody observing or some computer observing my prior choices. Now, I kind of worry about this when you take it to this extreme. If my future life's only an extrapolation of my past life, this is going to create an increased risk of groupthink, echo chambers, and greater polarization that ultimately will be threats to our society and our democracy. And finally, with big data, all of this data, this treasure trove of data, and the networks, the communication networks that are connecting it, have become increasingly valuable targets for cyber attacks. Whenever you create something valuable, somebody else wants to take it. So cyber attacks are becoming more lucrative and more destructive. And there is a huge, now, of course, cybersecurity market. Lastly, a third industry to think about how this world might be different: genomics. Big data has allowed cheaper and faster sequencing of the genome. Our life expectancies are increasing because of our ability to harvest all of that data in our 20 to 25,000 genes. Huge databases are being built and algorithms developed for advanced diagnostics, precision medicine, and targeted therapies. One example is liquid biopsies. These are blood tests for cancer. They can detect cancerous cells that are 1/100th of the size as can be detected by an MRI, 1/100th. You can now find cancer cells in stage 1 through these liquid biopsies when there are absolutely no symptoms in the human. Liquid biopsies used to be called the billionaire's test because they cost $140,000 3 years ago. But rapid advances in computer power and the understanding of our genetic code, this test costs $4,000 today. 2 to 3 years from now, it's going to cost $1,000. It's estimated within 4 years it will cost $400. And between 20 and 25, the years 2020 to the year 2025, the cost of this test will be baked into every healthcare plan in America. As a result, life expectancy of cancer victims will increase dramatically. The next thing that will come in this genomics industry is going to be our ability to edit the genome and customize organisms. You're already seeing that we can genetically engineer pig organs that can be safely translated into humans. What if we start creating designer babies with particular traits? Next will be hacking and decoding the functions of the brain. Good outcomes from that might be huge advances in our ability to treat neurological and mental illnesses. But kind of questionable outcomes might be people are speculating that if I have a certain memory or a certain traumatic event, that I can have surgery and that memory or traumatic event can be deleted from my brain. So deleting, completely removing pieces of our memories. Well, genomics is going to be a $1 trillion industry in the next 20 years with all of this capacity. It's becoming cheaper and democratized, extending the lives, eliminating the diseases that have killed thousands of people a year today, or are killing thousands of people a year today. It will extend our longevity. There will be a much larger, older population, creating a demand for a plethora of industries and services. And the ethical issues will abound around the essence of creation and the essence of humanity. Finally, in addition to the types of industries where our alumni are going to be working, how they're going to be working is going to be different. We already know that digital platforms are connecting us with physical assets. They're connecting us to cars with Uber, to vacation homes with Airbnb. But digital platforms are also connecting humans to work. Digital platforms are providing access to an on-demand, in the cloud, professional services workforce. Professional activities can now be dissected into precise segments, and those discrete projects thrown out into a virtual cloud of aspiring workers that could be located anywhere in the world. I was visiting with alumni in Seattle just a couple months ago. 3 females, alumni. They have previously worked for companies like Amazon, Microsoft. They're both professional in the cloud workers. Basically, they don't work for a company full-time anymore. They're there to pick the projects that they see, mostly that are thrown out from their prior employers, and do pieces of them. This evolving nature of work and how we organize ourselves to do it is going to require new forms of social and employment contracts, and lots of interesting questions for bright minds thinking about public policies and common good. So that's a lot of talk about the future. Why do I think about the future? The primary reason I think about the future is because that's the business that we are in. Because our mission, our vocation, our calling is to educate people for the future. So the industries of the future are going to eliminate jobs, disrupt societies and cultures, create many new jobs and professions. And the competitive advantage of the future is not going to be capital, because you will need much less capital to create something in a digital world. The competitive advantage of the future is talent. And we are the sources of that talent. But what kind of talent is going to be successful in the future? And now I'm back to Michael Jordan's comments. We often see in education as an either or. There's a wall in the middle. There's liberal education on one side, and there's technical and professional education on the other. And the public, the general public, and the media often act like these things are separated by a wall, and that you must choose one or the other. And we've seen a shift in demand by those who think they have to choose. We've seen a shift in demand from the liberal education side of that wall to the technical and professional education side of that wall. In particular, we've seen a shift of demand towards the STEM field, or technical education, sciences, technology, engineering, math, computers. You know, we've seen something similar at St. Thomas. We're no different. In the last 10 years, from 2005 to 2015, the percentage of our undergraduates majoring in the humanities has decreased 3%. That's actually a smaller decrease than the national average, which I'm pleased with. Our social science majors decreased 10%. The story here, though, is our STEM majors increased 11%, and our business majors remained constant. What this means is, in 2015, almost 70% of our undergraduates majored, this is just this last academic year, majored in a professional major such as business or a STEM field. So in 2015, about 70% of our undergraduate majors were on what you might think was one side of that wall. And we know being on one side of that wall is not going to prepare them best for the future. Because a liberal education is still relevant. Of course it's still relevant. For many reasons it's still relevant. You heard in Greg's reading from Michael One of my favorite definitions of a liberally educated person is from a 1998 article. A liberally educated person is someone who can listen and hear with empathy, read and understand with curiosity, persuasively communicate, solve a wide variety of puzzles and problems, who takes initiative and understands how to get things done, who empowers others for the well-being of the community, and who sees connections that allow one to make sense of the world and act within it in creative ways. Of course, a liberal education is still relevant. The good news is it is not a question of either or. Ideal education of the future will integrate liberal into technical and professional education. It will be interdisciplinary. It will merge the sciences and humanities. It will be multilingual. It will require fluency in human languages, cultures, and contexts, as well as technical languages. And it will be experiential. Students will learn in the context of real-world problems. The intelligence of the future that will be demanded by the industries of the future and developed by this type of integrated education will be a contextual intelligence. This is what is developed by an integrated education. It's the ability to understand context and match to technology to create new innovation. Those people that can understand context, this is learned in the humanities, where we study the human condition. This is learned in the social sciences, where we study the relationships of humans and society. This is what helps us develop understanding of context. If you think about the success of Facebook, for example, you think that's a technology company. Yes, Mark Zuckerberg is a fabulous computer scientist. But it is his expertise in behavioral psychology that has probably made that company as successful as it is, more so than his expertise in computer science. I've seen an example even much closer to my own home. I was visiting with my daughter in the Bay Area this past weekend. My daughter's 31. She majored in psychology when she was in college. She has enjoyed enormous success at technology companies such as Goober. It's Goober, yeah. That's what I called her when she was young. No, Google. Google and a number of tech startups because she understands context, not because she's an engineer. Emotional intelligence is going to be equally demanded by the industries of the future and requires an integrated education. Emotional intelligence is embodied in self-awareness, self-motivation, empathy, and social skills. Someone with emotional intelligence is flexible and agile, yet they're centered, and they have calm nerves. If you think about that on-demand sharing economy, if you think about working in an organization that requires a lot of cross-functional collaboration, requires a generation of new ideas, this type of emotional intelligence will be very, very important. And finally, ethical intelligence. This also requires this liberal and integrated professional and technical education. Emotional intelligence, we understand, is our moral and collective consciousness, grounded in our sense of shared purpose, our commitment to shared prosperity. If you think about this world, particularly with some of the genomics examples, some of the big data examples too, all stakeholders will have a role in ensuring innovation is directed to the common good, and ethical intelligence will be very important. Shared prosperity of the future. This world I described has the potential of having some real divisions in it. It has the potential of really separating low-pay, low-skill jobs from high-pay, high-skill segments of the economy. It has the potential of shrinking that low-pay, low-skill segment and drastically increasing that high-pay, high-skill segment. It has the capacity of really hollowing out the entire base of job skills from the pyramid, particularly those that are repetitive and routine. It has the capability of creating even more inequity and greater social tensions than we are experiencing today. So our responsibility is to extend the opportunities that are generated by the industries of the future to as many people as possible. And we'll need to work even harder to close the education and the prosperity gaps because there will be under increasing pressures to widen. We are a nation of difference, and it will require alternative pathways that meet people where they are and provide them opportunity that leads to shared prosperity. One path does not accommodate all people. The people on the left-hand side of that slide, they've all gotten an equal help. They're standing on boxes that are of equal height. The people on the right-hand slide are not. They're standing on boxes that give them equal opportunity. Equality does not equal equity. Right here at home, we have well-documented education and opportunity gaps. In 2015, in Minnesota, the high school graduation rate for all graduates was 81%. For students of color, it was 68%. For Black students, it was 60%. While a significant education gap remains, these graduation rates are actually up quite a bit. They're up 24% for students of color since 2003. And they're up 11% for Black students just since 2011. Much work remains to be done on a number of fronts if we're going to have equity. A high school graduation, however, will be increasingly less sufficient for the jobs of the future. Even now in Minnesota, our state ranks 10th in the country for the percentage of available jobs that require a 4-year degree. So our colleges and universities need to make sure we provide the next leg of the education pipeline to shared prosperity for as many Minnesotans as possible. And this will require alternative pathways. That's why I'm so passionate about the unique 2-year college program we're hoping to launch next fall, with the ultimate goal of increasing the number of underserved students in the Twin Cities who earn a bachelor's degree. So in conclusion, I'm thrilled, actually, to be leading St. Thomas at this time, even after reading all summer about this future and thinking about how we're prepared to meet it. I'm thrilled because I think we are providing just the kind of education that will best prepare our alumni for whatever the industries are of the future. I'm also excited about the work we're doing on our strategic plan, St. Thomas 2020. I believe that our accomplishments to date and our continued work on realizing each of these strategic priorities will further strengthen our ability to graduate alumni who will be morally responsible and transformational leaders of the industries of the future. You see, this is what I think of as a St. Thomas education. We provide an integrated, well, no matter what your major, we provide an integrated liberal and technical professional education. The work that our Educating for the Future Task Force is doing on revising our core curriculum is bringing some fresh concepts and some best practices to bear on this as we look at how it impacts our revision of the core. But we do have an integrated educational experience, not only in our undergraduate programs, in our graduate programs as well. And we provide this integrated education through a values-based lens. And in our case, it's a faith-based lens. And that lens is inspired by the Catholic intellectual tradition and Catholic social thought. It is the Catholic intellectual tradition that inspires us to pursue truth through the integration of faith and reason. And 2 fundamental principles of Catholic social thought are the dignity of the human person. We are called to respect and promote the dignity of all human persons. And solidarity. We are called to unity as one human family. We are called to have genuine empathy for others, and we cannot remain untouched by the suffering of any other brother or sister. So it is these principles, this lens that inspires our integrated education, and these principles that form the foundation for the mission-based outcome of our education, which is think, act, work, all for the common good. Happy New Year. God bless and Godspeed.